This law is not our law. This law is British colonial law. My ancestors had nothing in creating them.
There was a law of the land that Inuit people obeyed prior to any colonial law that came with Europeans. And it was implemented by the leader of the communities, or the leaders of the groups of Inuit that clan together. The Angyukak. The Angyukak was the person in charge of making sure that people followed the rules of the land.
Those natural laws, that responsibility I have as a human being to land and water and life, has trumped any colonial law or corporate law that tells me they own sacred space. No one ever owns sacred space. I don't own Muskrat Falls. I am both warrior and water keeper, and being able to use these two spirits interchangeably and connect with my ancestors and understand my responsibility to the next generations really led me into a path of becoming a protector. I used the language of land protector for many years because that's how I've been taught, that I have a responsibility.
Until I had occupied the gate last year, I didn't realize how oppressed and how colonized I was. I didn't know I could say no. I didn't have a clue. And then when we went in that gate, it was the most empowering, the most freeing experience I had ever had. And it was the first time in history that 3 Aboriginal groups and settlers in Labrador had actually worked together.
I haven't eaten in 10 days, and it's people like yourselves who are doing what you're doing. You are my food. You are my nourishment. You are what's keeping me going. You are what's keeping all of us going. And I really, really appreciate that. So thank you so, so much. This is unbelievable. Now, I'm going to stand up.
Oh!
Again, you are all so, so great here. You're such a big help. But I've got to say, there's other things as well that are holding me up right now. There's other reasons as well that I'm fighting. This here coat, back home we call it a dickie. I love this here coat. When I was first given this, I should say this here coat, it was white. And when I went out onto the ice for the first time, I gotta admit I was slightly embarrassed to go out with a white coat. And every time I went out and I hunted seals, each time I collected a little bit of their blood on my sleeves, on the front, and that blood also became a part of me as I ate the seal, and it's a part of me right now as I wear it, and it makes me proud. And the more blood that I put on this, the more power I feel as though I have.
I've lived an Inuit traditional life. You know, we've lived by the sea. Inuit are sea people. We lived by the sea. We depend on the water, we depend on the sea, we depend on the fish and seals and the berries out on the island, all that stuff, all the stuff that our surrounding water and land brings to us. I learned it because it was part of who I am. I saw my grandmother make sealskin boots as a small child. I smelled that seal fat as it came off of the skin. It was a continual thing in her household. We depended on the seal. We depended on the seal to eat. It gave us food. It gave us oil. It gave us skins for our clothing. we can't forget this. This is who we are. This is where we came from.
Our fight is a big one. We got a big monster in front of us. There's no doubt about that. And you know, they have the justice system, they have the police, they have judges, they have lawyers, they have the politicians, they have the native leaders. You know, they have some of the mainstream media. And what we have is our bodies and our minds that they can't break. And the sacrifice that we must make is with our body and our mind, and we accept that. And there have been sacrifice, and there will be other great sacrifice to come. And it's not easy knowing that you're probably going to be in prison in a week or two or a month or two, or some of your friends are. And that's not easy to sleep with at night, knowing that you may have to go to jail. But you know what? The future generations need us today. The future generations need to have warriors that'll stand up for them. Because if it's not about that, then what is it about? You know, is it about me getting rich so I can what? Go and live on an island somewhere? I don't want to live on an island somewhere. I want to live in Labrador, my beautiful home.
Yeah, I had made my decision the night before. I had texted a father figure and I told him what I do tomorrow, I do to protect my son. And then the next day, I was restless all morning because I was struggling with my God. I was the first Labrador Land Protector he had called up. He had talked about why we had broken condition the week before, because we were supporting the Mud Lake residents after their homes got flooded. He had asked me if I would break the condition again, and I had said yes. I was not expecting prison time. I had known it was a possibility, but it was my way of protecting my son to ensure that he wouldn't have to serve any jail time. It was my way of standing up and saying, no, you cannot get away with this. You cannot just tell us what to do. From the day I got arrested and put in jail to the day I got out, it was 12 days. That morning I went, the RCMP cop came in, opened the cell door and had said, come on, Beat. And I said, where am I going? And the cop had said to me, he said, you're going to St. John's. And I had said, well, I can't see my kids or my family first before I go. And all he said is, no, you're in jail. So when the plane had actually taken off, that's when I actually started to cry and panic. And I had made sure I looked at all my family's homes, because I wasn't sure if I was going to see them again.
Of course it's fear, and of course it's hurt, and of course it's indignation. And it's directly related to what I was talking about earlier about, you know, growing up as an Aboriginal Inuit woman, as a person, as a child and teenager and woman. We've depended on that, on the fish from the sea. We've depended on seals, and now this is all going to change. I'm not sure if people realize how drastically this is going to change. And I've said this previously too, that we didn't sample this every now and then. We didn't depend on this intermittently. We were hungry. We get hungry for wild meat. I get hungry for wild meat. I have to have it every, like if I go a week without it, I got to have something from the land. Fish, partridges, moose, or whatever. Caribou it used to be, but that's no longer. And that's the way I grew up. My father always said, time to get some real food. It's time to get some real food. And I've heard that from so many elders in Riglet, that the store-bought food is, it can keep us alive, but it does not sustain us the way the animals from the land do. It does not. So to think about methyl-mercury changing all that, it's only the only words that come to me is like total destruction of a culture. Total destruction of a culture and traditional way of life. It's infuriating. It's maddening. It's chaos. It creates an emotional chaos inside of me.
It's important that people understand there's a whole lot more to this river. Like, I've always said I want to free the river. Like, it kills me when people, and even though we use that language ourselves, because we've had to shut muskrat down. I want it to be we free Muskrat Falls. That's what I want the hashtag to be, because it was a place before it was ever a project. And that's something they took from us. Like the sacred place, that was one of the sites of the last Innu shaking tents. Spirit Mountain has so much history. I've done many, many pipe ceremonies on the bottom of Spirit Mountain, and there's prayer ribbons that should be still tied up in trees that I put there. There's a lot of spirituality if you are ever to be there and sit there before they destroyed it, because now it feels hurting. Like you actually, if you're there and you're tuned in, you can feel the hurt coming from the land and coming from the river. That's why whenever I go, I lay medicines. I always say prayers and I play my drum and I lay medicines to help with the healing of the earth and the healing of the water.